Welcome back to the beer garden, where my quarantine beard is fluffed with humidity, and regardless of what time of the year you're watching this video, it is Oktoberfest season, one of my favorite seasons, especially for drinking beer. And I'm bending the rules a little bit this time. Up this round is Sierra Nevada Oktoberfest. Not really a cheap brew. Price point wise, it's just slightly exceeding the rules for $8.99 a six-pack. But again, it is Oktoberfest season, and when it comes to Oktoberfest beers, and especially cheap ones, it's kind of slim pickings out there, if you know what I mean. Let's pop the top and see what we got. Here's to Oktoberfest in quarantine. PROST. I guess I should have prefaced this by saying I like just about every type of brew Sierra Nevada has, and Oktoberfest, of course, is a seasonal, and they sort of change it up a little bit every year. 5.8% alcohol. Now, like I said, Oktoberfest is one of my favorite seasons. I take German beer very serious. I was born in Germany, lived in Germany, drank a lot of beer in Germany, and so I take it very personal, and especially German beers and German style beers. So my standard for Oktoberfest beers are pretty high. My favorite Oktoberfest beers are Hockershore would be number one. Paulaner would be probably number two. The Sierra Nevada Oktoberfest is not really a cheap brew, but I wanted to do the review anyway. It tastes like a good beer. If you didn't tell me this was an Oktoberfest beer, I wouldn't have guessed it was an Oktoberfest. It has a slight amount of that maltiness, but an Oktoberfest beer should be, and a Märzen beer should be a heavy malt with very little hops. This is a well-balanced beer, don't get me wrong, but it's not an Oktoberfest beer. A little hoppy for my taste for an Oktoberfest. You get a little malt on the back end, but I'm not getting any of that yeastiness that German beers have. There's very almost like a chewy, bready yeastiness to it, and then the sweetness of the malt. I'm getting an uncomfortable amount of hops up front. I hit a little pillow plateau in the middle of just not a whole lot happening, and then I get a little bit of sweetness afterwards, and I mean a little bit of sweetness afterwards. So as far as Oktoberfest beers go, I would say this is kind of like an electric car of an Oktoberfest beer. Almost like a hipster who's never been to Germany's version of an Oktoberfest beer. Not that that's a bad thing. I think it's a good tasting, balanced beer, but it's just not an Oktoberfest. A good fall beer. If they would have just put Sierra Nevada fall beer on it, hey, awesome. So you can't call this a cheap beer like I've said before. So out of 5 stars, 5 being a very good beer, where would I put Sierra Nevada Oktoberfest? And I'm basing it all on it being called an Oktoberfest. You can't call it an Oktoberfest if it doesn't taste like an Oktoberfest. So it is a good beer, very drinkable beer, an enjoyable beer, but as far as an Oktoberfest goes, out of 5 stars, I'm gonna give you a 2.5. Go ahead, let the hate comments start below. Oh, and speaking of down below, if you would, go ahead and click that subscribe button. If you would, please, we'd really appreciate it, and thank you for your support. So enjoy the Oktoberfest season, no matter what time of the year you're watching this video. Make it your own little Oktoberfest. And also check out some of my other videos here, and happy Oktoberfest. Prost!